In the Back of the Book segment tonight, trouble for Hillary Clinton in Nevada. The state's Democratic caucus is just 5 days away, and there are signs Bernie Sanders may be gaining ground among Nevada's critical Latino community. Ms. Clinton spent the weekend urgently trying to halt Bernie Sanders' momentum.
Not everything is about an economic theory, right? If we broke up the big banks tomorrow, and I will, if they deserve it, if they pose a systemic risk, I will, would that end racism? Would that end sexism? Would that end discrimination against the LGBT community? Would that make people feel more welcoming to immigrants overnight? I'm the only candidate who will stand with you in every single fight, no matter how hard it is or how long it takes.
And Hillary actually called off a scheduled visit to Florida today, staying in Nevada instead to hold events. Joining us now from Miami to analyze Democratic strategist Julian Epstein, who's backing Hillary Clinton, and with us in studio, Nomiki Konst, Democratic strategist and a Bernie Sanders supporter. Julian, I'm going to start with you. What was that? What was that soundbite? Hillary Clinton literally tied the banks, breaking up the banks, to race, sexism, immigration. She threw the kitchen sink on that one.
Well, I think the point that she's making there is that, and it's a very effective pushback, I think, on Senator Sanders, is that Senator Sanders tends to be a one-issue candidate. He tends to start every sentence off with a noun, a verb, and Wall Street. And I think the point that she's making is that she's been involved in these fights, whether it's health care, whether it's education, whether it's immigration, whether it's crime, whether it's voting rights, for a lot longer, for decades and decades. She's been in the trenches. And Bernie, for the most part, has been talking about the same thing, the disparity of wealth, and, you know, hasn't gotten that much done in the last 20 years in Congress on that issue. And I think it's a relatively effective pushback. And if you look at all the polling, particularly as we get beyond Nevada, if you look at South Carolina, as you look at Florida, as you look at all the Midwestern states, where 60% of the delegates are going to be chosen.
I want to talk about that.
She's still ahead by somewhere between 20 and 40 points.
This whole superdelegate thing is making my head explode. Republicans don't have...
Not superdelegates.
Well, I know, but let's talk about the superdelegates in a second. It seems like, Nomiki, it seems like a rigged game superdelegate-wise. Let's talk about this, though. One-issue candidate, Bernie Sanders, Wall Street.
Let's go back to a famous line by James Carville, who was an advisor to the Clinton campaign. It's the economy, stupid. Sure, he does talk about Wall Street, but he also talks about criminal justice reform, education reform, health care reform. Those are all issues you hear over and over and over on the trail. See, this is a distraction. This is a classic Hillary Clinton distraction, to distract away from the issues that her record on criminal justice, the fact that her husband accepted more private prison donations than any other president in history, the fact that she designed the welfare reform bill. This is all a distraction to go beyond the message, which is she's good for African-American community. But the reality is the record of the Clinton administration, the record of Hillary Clinton in the Senate was bad for African Americans. She even wanted to build a wall on the Mexican border. So if her immigration reform is so strong, then why didn't she vote for it in the
Julian,
Senate?
we've heard debate after debate. Hold on. We've heard debate after debate. Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders going at it over health care. We know that's been an issue.
Well, look, I mean, you know, Bernie Sanders has a proposal on health care, and a lot of people are sympathetic, which is a single-payer idea of nationalizing our health insurance system. It will cost trillions of dollars. It will cause increase in taxes. Now, there are a lot of people that are sympathetic to it because of the dysfunction, but I just think at the end of the day...
Hold on. We're not haggling over that. I'm trying to say you and Hillary Clinton have accused Bernie Sanders of being a one-issue candidate, and there, as Nomiki points out, health care is one of them, income inequality is another one, breaking up the banks is a third. There's depth to the guy.
There is, in fairness to him, but I think his central thesis starts about the tapping into the economic resentment of the financial institutions. That is his central point. I think the other,
Julian,
if I can finish, I think the other, I think the point about, I think
campaigns have messages. Campaign 101. You know it as a strategist. I know it as a strategist. You have a message, and you have to build from that message. Hillary Clinton's message is, let's just continue doing the same old, same old. I don't care about the young people, but I want them to vote for me, so I'm going to pander to them. I don't care about African Americans. I just want to pander to them. There are no proposals.
Right.
She's basically just trying to expand on something that already exists that hasn't helped those who are hurting the most.
Julian.
And that's the economy.
So if I can answer the question now, I think one of the reasons that Hillary Clinton has a 20 to 30 to 40% lead in the polls in almost all of the March primaries is because she has ideas that are practical and that can be put into effect, as opposed to a single-payer idea, which most Democrats, I think, are going to think of as pie in the sky. Now, secondly, I think when Bernie Sanders has his surrogates come on television and making these smears against the Clintons in terms of what they have done on crime issues, on civil rights issues,
Julian?
and a whole host of issues.
You have the largest surrogate operation in history. You can't make clams without a response. This isn't the Julian Epstein show.
If I can finish without the interruption. If I can finish without the interruption. When you say she's pandering to the African-American community, you have no idea and no sense and no appreciation for the decades in which the Clintons have been partners with the African-American community and with the African-American leaders on a whole host of issues where Bernie was largely silent. Look, I was there. I was the counsel of the committee that dealt with those issues, so I was there and you weren't.
Hold on. Here, let me just point out two things. Bill Clinton was the president who instituted 3 strikes and you're out. Invariably, the reason why there have been more African Americans incarcerated than any other president. He was also there for the welfare reform program, where it's required proof of work if you're going to receive welfare. And a lot of minorities push back on both of those initiatives. Yet, for some reason, they like to say Bill Clinton was the first African American president. I'm scratching my head to find out why.
He played a saxophone. That's why.
Well, Julian.
Well, so you can cherry pick 1 or 2 of those issues, and again on the crime issue,
Julian, they're not cherry picking. They're very big issues.
Let me finish.
They're big issues for the African American community.
They are big issues, but you are cherry picking because you are ignoring so many other issues. In the 1990s, when affirmative action was struck down by the Supreme Court, Bill Clinton was the guy that fixed it. On a whole host of civil rights issues, Bill Clinton was the guy that went out to fix that. On issues of racial disparities in sentencing, the Clintons were on board on that. I can give you, and I was the counsel of the Judiciary Committee where most of these issues went through. On 90% of the issues that were critical to African Americans, Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton were not just there, but they were in the trenches.
Bernie
Sanders was nowhere to be seen on these issues. And you know, African-American leaders, they're not stupid. That's why they're all behind the Clintons.
Okay, so if you want to look at the Congressional Black Caucus, it was the donors. They're the people who've been on the campaign trail who are getting benefits from the Hillary Clinton. When you look at the supporters, the African-American supporters, why is it almost unanimously those under 45 support Bernie Sanders? Because they're feeling the effects and can connect.
I need to leave it there. Very hot debate, you guys.
What a smear. What a smear by the...
Right there.